It was New Year's Eve. The house smelled of roasted chicken and cinnamon candles, the kind of forced cheer my parents loved to display. I had just dropped my jacket on the chair when the knock came at the front door. My father Dorian stiffened and my mother Elijah froze in place. When my dad opened the door, I saw a man I hadn't seen in years, my Uncle Silas. If you think United States is best country of world, please subscribe the channel and hit bell icon, please. His presence alone shifted the air. Tall, broad-shouldered, with sharp gray eyes that always seemed to pierce through lies. He stepped inside without asking. The room went silent. I sat awkwardly near the couch, wondering why he had come after so many years of being absent. My father muttered a half-hearted greeting, but before anyone could say more, Silas looked directly at me and asked, "Kalen, how's the $3 million trust fund I left you?" The words slammed into me. I blinked at him, unsure if I heard right. "What trust fund?" I asked, my voice cracked. "I've been delivering pizzas just to survive." My uncle's jaw tightened. His face turned red as his eyes shifted to my parents. The warmth of the holiday light suddenly felt like interrogation lamps. My father's expression hardened, and my mother's hands trembled as she tried to busy herself with rearranging napkins that didn't need fixing. Neither of them said a word. They stood frozen, their silence louder than any denial. Silas's glare was fiery and unyielding. The air between them vibrated with a tension that made my chest pound. My parents looked cornered, like people who had been caught in a lie they could no longer outrun. Then slowly, Silas turned back to me, reached into his coat and pulled out a sealed envelope. He pressed it firmly into my hand and said, "Your parents have been hiding something that proves everything. It's time you knew the truth." In that moment, the world I thought I knew shattered. I grew up in a house where silence spoke louder than words. My father Dorian was the kind of man who measured worth in numbers, grades, wages, possessions. If you did not meet his standard, you were treated like you had failed him personally. My mother Elijah was gentler in her presence but rarely in her choices. She had a way of agreeing with my father, even when she clearly wanted to say something else. It was easier for her to side with him than risk his temper. That was the balance in our home. His control, her compliance, and me stuck in the middle, trying to find a way to breathe. By the time I turned 22, I had already given up on the idea that I would ever make them proud. I worked long shifts at a local pizza shop, driving across town in a beat-up car with a broken heater. Winter nights bit through my jacket as I delivered food to strangers who barely looked at me when they opened their doors. I came home with sore feet and barely enough cash to cover my student loans. I dreamed of something bigger, but dreaming felt like a luxury when reality kept smothering me. My parents knew how hard I was working, but they never offered to help. My father would sneer whenever I came home in my uniform. "If you studied harder, you wouldn't be wasting your time with deliveries," he would say. He made it sound like I had chosen failure, like my exhaustion was proof of laziness. My mother never corrected him. She would simply lower her eyes and clear the table, as if ignoring the words could make them sting less. But they always did. I felt invisible in that house. Every paycheck reminded me how trapped I was, yet every night under their roof reminded me how much I needed them. Rent was too high. Tuition kept climbing and I was drowning in debt. Friends my age were moving into apartments, planning careers and building lives. I was wiping pizza sauce off my jacket and pretending I didn't hear my father's disappointed sighs. The holidays only made the contrast sharper. New Year's Eve was my least favorite. My parents would decorate the house with silver garlands and glowing candles, acting as if everything was perfect. They invited neighbors and a few relatives, laughing loudly and talking about achievements that were not mine. Dorian would pour drinks and brag about the family's stability, even as I sat in the corner, clutching my phone like a shield, wishing the night would end quickly. That year, though, something felt heavier than usual. I had just finished a long shift at the shop. My fingers smelled faintly of garlic butter, and my legs ached from climbing too many stairs with deliveries. When I walked through the front door, the warmth of the house should have been comforting, but it felt staged, like I had stepped into a play where everyone else knew their lines, and I was just an extra. My father looked at me briefly, shook his head and muttered something about presentation under his breath. My mother told me to change quickly so I would look more appropriate for the guests. I wanted to argue, but my body was too tired. I slipped into a clean shirt and sat near the edge of the living room, scrolling through my phone to drown out the chatter. The laughter of other people only highlighted how alone I felt in my own family. And then the knock came. It was sharp, deliberate, and unexpected. My father froze. My mother's smile faltered. Guests turned their heads, confused. When the door opened and Uncle Silas walked in, the entire mood shifted. He was not a man who visited for small talk or holiday pleasantries. He was the estranged brother, the one who had argued with my father years ago and never returned. His arrival was as shocking as thunder on a clear night. Silas's presence filled the room instantly. He carried himself like someone who had built his own world and did not care about fitting into anyone else's. His sharp gaze landed on me almost immediately. Before anyone could catch their breath, before my father could even form a greeting, Silas asked the question that detonated everything. "Kaylin, how's the $3 million trust fund I left you?" The words echoed through the room. Guests stared at me. My stomach twisted and my mind went blank. My father's jaw tightened. My mother clutched the edge of the table. I felt the weight of their silence pressing against me, suffocating and unexplainable. "I don't have a trust fund," I said, my voice cracking. "I've been delivering pizzas just to stay afloat." For a moment, no one moved. The holiday lights twinkled mockingly, reflecting off wine glasses and silver ornaments. My uncle's face darkened, his expression burning with rage as he turned his glare onto my parents. They looked like statues, unable to move or speak, trapped in their own fear. That was when I understood. There was a truth in this house that had been buried for years, and I had just stumbled into it. The silence that followed my uncle's question stretched like a rope pulled tight, ready to snap. My father's lips pressed into a hard line. My mother's hands shook so slightly that only someone watching closely could see it. The guests, confused and uncomfortable, glanced between us. Some coughed nervously and pretended to study their drinks, but most were waiting to see what would happen next. Uncle Silas did not wait. He stepped forward, his boots heavy against the floor, and fixed his eyes on me again. "I set up that trust fund when you were a child," he said. $3 million to give you a foundation, a chance to live without the chains of debt. You mean to tell me you know nothing about it?" My throat felt tight, but I forced myself to answer. "I know nothing. I've been broke since high school. I've been working late nights delivering pizzas just to keep the lights on." A murmur rippled through the room. My father's jaw clenched so hard I could hear his teeth grind. My mother lowered her gaze, pretending to rearrange the silverware as if that could shield her from the storm that was about to break. Silas turned his glare on them, his face reddening. "Dorian, Elijah, do you care to explain why your son has no idea about his inheritance?" His voice thundered through the living room. The guests shifted uncomfortably. My father cleared his throat but said nothing. My mother's lips parted but no words came. I looked between them, my pulse racing. For years I had accepted their harshness, their control, their disappointment. But this was different. This was betrayal painted in bold strokes across the walls of my childhood home. My chest ached with anger and confusion. "Answer him," I demanded, my voice louder than I expected. "What trust fund is he talking about? Why don't I know about this?" My father snapped his head toward me, his eyes blazing. "This is not the time or the place," he hissed. "Then when is the time?" I shot back. My voice cracked, but I didn't care. "When I'm 50 and still working myself to death for nothing?" The guests gasped softly at my outburst. My mother reached out as if to calm me, but I pulled away. I wanted the truth. I needed it. Silas's voice cut through again, sharp as a blade. "You think you can hide behind silence? Do you know how hard I fought with Father to make sure Kaylin had something secure? Do you know the promises I made to him on his deathbed?" He jabbed a finger toward my father. "You were supposed to respect that. You were supposed to protect your own son." My father's face twisted with a mix of rage and panic. "You don't know what you're talking about, Silas. You were gone. You left this family. You don't get to walk in here after all these years and accuse us." "I left because of you," Silas shot back. "Because of your greed and your lies." His eyes flicked to me again. "And now I see you've dragged your son into the same darkness." Every word tightened the knot in my chest. I felt heat rushing to my face, my palms damp with sweat. I looked at my mother, silently begging her to contradict him, to say something that would undo this nightmare. She only shook her head weakly, tears welling in her eyes. "Mom," I pleaded, my voice breaking. "Is any of this true?" She closed her eyes, and that was all the answer I needed. Rage surged through me. Years of working until my body ached. Nights spent hungry to save money. Humiliation from my father's constant criticism. All of it crashed down at once. "You knew?" I shouted. "All this time you let me believe I was worthless, struggling every day while I had a trust fund waiting for me." How could you do that to me? My father slammed his hand against the table, rattling the glasses. You don't understand what we sacrificed. You don't understand the pressure we were under. Pressure? I barked. I was eating cold pizza crusts on my lunch breaks while you wore new suits and took vacations. Don't talk to me about pressure. The guests looked horrified. Some excused themselves quietly and slipped out the door, but most stayed too stunned to leave. The air was heavy with betrayal and disbelief. Silas's fury grew darker. He stepped closer to me, his voice softer but still heavy with authority. Kaylin, they've been hiding the truth from you for years. I cannot stand by and watch this anymore. He reached into his coat and pulled out a sealed envelope, thick and weighty. He held it out to me. I hesitated, my hands trembling. My parents stared at the envelope like it was a loaded weapon. What is that? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The truth, Silas said firmly. Your grandfather knew this day might come. He left this letter for you. Everything you need to know is inside. I took it. The weight of it sank into my palm like stone. My father lunged forward slightly as if to grab it. But Silas stepped between us. My mother's face crumpled, tears sliding down her cheeks as she whispered, Please, Kaylin, don't open it. Why? I demanded, clutching the letter against my chest. What could possibly be so terrible that you would rather watch me struggle than tell me the truth? Neither of them answered. Their silence was the loudest betrayal of all. In that moment, I understood something I had never admitted to myself. My parents had never been protecting me. They had been protecting themselves. And now, with the letter burning in my hands, I knew that whatever was written inside would rip away whatever fragile trust I still had left in them. The envelope in my hand felt heavier than paper should. It was sealed tightly, my name written across the front in my grandfather's handwriting, bold and deliberate. My chest tightened as I stared at it. This wasn't just a piece of mail. This was a key to a truth that had been hidden from me for years. A truth that my parents clearly didn't want me to know. My Uncle Silas's eyes bore into me. Read it, Kaylin. Don't let them control you any longer. His voice was low but steady, almost protective. My father, Dorian, stepped forward, his face red with fury. Don't you dare open that letter, he snapped. His voice carried the same authority he had used my entire life to shut me down. That letter was never meant for you. My mother whispered urgently, her hands trembling as she reached toward me. Please, Kaylin, listen to your father. That letter will only bring you pain. We wanted to spare you from all of this. Her words cut deeper than my father's anger. Spare me from what? From knowing I wasn't destined to live in struggle? From discovering that I had been lied to for years? My stomach churned, a storm raging inside me. I felt my throat tighten with rage. I clutched the letter against my chest, my voice shaking but firm. No, you don't get to decide what I know. You don't get to keep me in the dark anymore. The guests who remained huddled near the back of the room, their eyes wide, whispering nervously. Some looked at me with pity, others with curiosity, but none dared to leave now. It felt like everyone in the world was waiting for me to make a choice. Dorian's voice rose to a roar. You are my son, and as long as you live under my roof, you will do as I say. That letter will not be opened. I straightened my shoulders. For the first time in my life, I didn't flinch under his command. My voice came out steady, almost cold. Then maybe I shouldn't be living under your roof anymore. The words stunned even me. I saw the shock flicker across his face, followed by rage. My mother gasped, her tears spilling freely now, but I couldn't take them back. The letter had forced me into a choice, and I had finally drawn a line. Silas stepped closer, placing a hand on my shoulder. You don't have to let them scare you anymore, he said. His presence steadied me, a wall between me and the fear my parents had always used to keep me obedient. I turned back to them, my voice louder now, fueled by years of frustration. All my life you told me I wasn't good enough. You let me work myself to exhaustion, made me believe I had to earn every crumb while you knew I had security waiting for me. You let me drown while you had the life raft hidden behind your back. Why? Tell me why you did this to me. My mother shook her head, sobbing into her hands. My father glared at me. But for the first time I saw something behind his anger. Fear. He wasn't afraid of my uncle. He wasn't afraid of the guests. He was afraid of me learning the truth. You wouldn't understand, he spat. That money wasn't meant for you to waste. It wasn't meant for a boy who couldn't stand on his own 2 feet. We used it to keep this family together. His words hit me like a physical blow. My voice cracked as I shouted back. You stole my future to keep your pride intact. You made me believe I was worthless just to protect yourself." The room pulsed with tension. My mother tried to step in, but Silas blocked her path, his voice calm but sharp. "Enough lies. The boy deserves the truth." I looked down at the envelope in my hands again. My fingers brushed over the seal. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might break free from my chest. The decision pressed on me like the weight of the world. If I opened it, there would be no turning back. Everything would change. But if I didn't, I would remain trapped in the same cage my parents had built for me. I lifted my head, my voice quiet but certain. "I'm opening it." My father lunged forward, but Silas shoved him back with surprising force. The guests gasped, a few crying out in alarm. My mother's sobs grew louder, her voice breaking as she pleaded, "Please, Kaylin, don't do this. We did it for you. We thought we were protecting you." Her words made my hands tremble, but I shook my head. "Protecting me? Or protecting yourselves?" Silas looked at me and nodded. "You have to know. Don't let their fear control you any longer." I slid my thumb under the seal. The sound of the paper tearing was deafening in the silence of the room. My parents froze, their faces twisted in panic. The guests leaned forward, some holding their breath. My uncle stood firmly beside me, his hand still resting on my shoulder, his eyes locked on the letter. As I unfolded the thick paper inside, my vision blurred with tears. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about truth. This was about finally breaking free from the lies that had shaped my entire life. And in that moment, with the letter trembling in my hands, I knew I was standing at the edge of a revelation that would destroy everything I thought I knew about my family. The paper in my hands shook as I unfolded it. The room was silent except for the sound of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I looked down at the letter, the handwriting unmistakably my grandfather's, firm, deliberate, and filled with a kind of care I had never felt from my father. "Kaylin," the letter began, "this trust has been created for you alone. It is my gift to you so that you will never know the kind of struggle I saw your father put others through. Use it wisely, but know it belongs to you and no one else. Do not let anyone convince you otherwise. If you are holding this letter, then it means the people I trusted most have kept the truth from you." My breath caught in my throat. The words blurred through my tears, but I forced myself to keep reading. The letter included detailed legal documents, all signed, all official. My grandfather had left me $3 million in a protected trust fund. It should have been mine when I turned 18. Instead, for 4 years, I had been living in poverty while my parents secretly lived off money that never belonged to them. Gasps rippled through the remaining guests. My mother let out a choked sob, covering her face with her hands. My father's fists tightened, his knuckles pale as stone. I lifted my eyes from the page and glared at them. My voice trembled, but it carried across the room with more force than I had ever spoken in my life. "You stole from me. You stole my future." Dorian's face twisted with anger and desperation. "You don't understand what we sacrificed. That money wasn't meant for you to waste. We used it to keep this house, to maintain the life we built. Without it, we would have lost everything." I could hardly believe what I was hearing. "You lost nothing," I shouted. "I lost everything. I lost years of my life believing I was worthless. I lost my chance to live without fear, to chase dreams, to be more than a delivery boy scraping by. You had everything while I had nothing, and you did it knowing it was mine." My mother dropped to her knees, sobbing. "We only wanted to protect you from responsibility too young. We thought we were doing what was best." Her words cracked something inside me. I had spent my whole life waiting for her to defend me, to finally put me before my father. And now, when the truth was clear, all she could do was offer excuses. Uncle Silas's voice boomed, cutting through the noise. "You didn't protect him. You robbed him. You lied to your own son and forced him to live like a beggar while you lined your pockets with his future." He pointed directly at Dorian. "You always were selfish. And now the whole world can see it," my father snapped, his voice raw with fury. "You think you're so righteous, Silas? You abandoned this family years ago. You don't know what it means to sacrifice for a child." Silas stepped closer, his face inches from my father's. "I know exactly what it means. That is why I fought to make sure Kaylin had something his father couldn't ruin. And you proved me right." I looked at them both, my chest heaving with emotion. My father's anger, my mother's tears, my uncle's fury, it all swirled around me. But I felt strangely steady. For the first time, I wasn't the child in this family. I was the one holding the truth, and with it the power they had tried so hard to keep from me. I raised the letter high for everyone to see. "This is proof," I said, my voice clear and strong. Proof that you lied to me. Proof that you let me suffer for no reason. Proof that you chose yourselves over me." The guests murmured loudly now, some shaking their heads in disgust. A few pulled out their phones, no doubt recording the scene. My father's face turned ashen as he realized the humiliation was spreading beyond these walls. I turned to my mother, my voice softer but no less sharp. "You could have told me even once. You could have slipped me a note, whispered it when he wasn't around. But you chose silence. You chose him over me." Her sobs grew harder and she whispered through her tears, "I'm sorry, Kaylin, I thought I was protecting you." The words were too little, too late. I folded the letter carefully, tucking it back into the envelope. My hands stopped shaking. I felt a strange calm, as if the storm inside me had finally broken and left me standing in the wreckage. Uncle Silas placed his hand on my shoulder again. "You don't have to face this alone anymore. I'll make sure the trust is returned to you. They cannot keep what is rightfully yours." I nodded, my eyes fixed on my parents. "You stole from me. You lied to me, and you made me believe I was less than I am. I will never forgive you for that." Dorian tried to step toward me, his voice cracking with something that sounded almost like desperation. "Kaylin, you're my son. You can't just turn your back on us." I met his gaze unflinching. "You turned your back on me a long time ago." The words hung heavy in the room. My father's face collapsed into something I had never seen before, defeat. My mother reached for me, but I stepped back. For once, I was not the boy begging for their approval. I was the man walking away with the truth in his hands. The letter had revealed more than stolen money. It had revealed the reality of who my parents truly were, and that was something I could never unsee. The room felt hollow after the confrontation. My father stood rigid, his chest heaving with unspent rage, but he said nothing. My mother sobbed quietly, her tears dripping onto the floor like a confession. She could not bring herself to speak. The guests were no longer whispering. Their faces told the story for them, shock, disgust, and pity for me. I had never felt so exposed, yet I had also never felt so free. The letter was still in my hand, its weight shifting from burden to shield. For years I had believed I was the problem. I believed my failures defined me, that my struggles were proof I was not strong enough, not smart enough, not disciplined enough. But in truth, it was not weakness that held me down. It was betrayal. Uncle Silas squeezed my shoulder gently. "You know now," he said. His voice was quieter, almost weary, as if the fight had taken something out of him too. "The rest is your choice." I looked at him and nodded. He had been absent for years. But in that moment, he was the only person in the room who felt like family. He had been the one to ensure my future, and even after my parents twisted it, he was here to help me reclaim it. I turned back to my parents. My father's face was pale, his eyes darting as if searching for an excuse strong enough to fix what had been broken. My mother's hands were clasped together, trembling as she whispered, "Kaylin, please. We never meant to hurt you. We thought we were doing what was right." Her words stung, but I felt no comfort in them. I shook my head slowly. "You didn't protect me. You trapped me. You let me believe I had nothing while you took everything. That isn't love. That's control." The truth hung heavy in the air, undeniable and irreversible. For the first time, I saw my parents not as the towering figures of my childhood, but as two people who had chosen lies over honesty, greed over love. I slipped the letter back into its envelope and tucked it safely into my jacket pocket. Then I straightened my back, wiped the tears from my face, and walked toward the door. Each step felt like peeling off a weight I had carried for years. "Where are you going?" My father barked. His voice no longer sounded powerful. It sounded desperate. "Away," I answered simply. "To build the life you tried to steal from me." My mother reached out as if to stop me, but I stepped past her. I didn't owe her another glance. Silas followed me to the door. Before we left, he turned and faced his brother one last time. "You've lost him," he said, "and you did it to yourself." Then he and I stepped out into the cold night air. The fireworks in the distance were starting, loud bursts of color lighting the sky. For everyone else, it was a celebration of the new year. For me, it was the sound of a new life beginning. We walked down the icy driveway, my breath visible in the winter air. I felt my chest loosen for the first time in years. My uncle looked at me and said, "You're stronger than they ever let you believe, and now you finally have the chance to prove it." I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. But this time, they were not tears of pain. They were tears of release. I knew the road ahead would not be easy. There would be legal battles, hard conversations, and painful memories. But I also knew I was no longer powerless. I had proof. I had support. And I had a future that belonged to me. As we drove away, I looked out the window at the fading lights of the house that had never truly been home. I thought about all the years I spent searching for approval from people who only saw me as an obstacle to their pride. I realized I would never get the love I wanted from them. But I had something more valuable now, the strength to define my life on my own terms. That night taught me a lesson I will never forget. Love without honesty is not love at all. Family without trust is just a performance. And sometimes the people who claim to be protecting you are the very ones you need to protect yourself from. The trust fund was money. Yes, but it was more than that. It was proof that I was worthy, that someone in my family had believed in me enough to give me a foundation. My parents tried to erase that, but they failed. I wasn't worthless. I wasn't weak. I had been robbed, but now I was taking my life back. As the city skyline appeared in the distance, I knew the next chapter of my life had already begun. It would not be defined by their lies. It would be defined by the truth I finally held in my hands. And to anyone listening now, I want you to take this with you. No matter who tries to silence you, no matter who tries to control your story, you deserve to know the truth about your own life. You deserve freedom. And once you find it, no one can ever take it away again. If you felt this story in your chest the way I lived it, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and leave a comment below about what you would have done if you were in my place. And if you want more true stories that hit hard and keep you hooked, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next.